People seem a little aggressive around here. No, I just broke his arm.
In a world where we have pre-sequels, sequels, remakes, remakes of remakes, remakes looked at but slightly touched with an airbrushing to make it slightly different as the sequel of the original, now we have another Roadhouse movie. The original coming out in the 1980s, here we have one in 2024. But does it live up to your perception of the original, and does it need to? We're going to be talking about Roadhouse versus Roadhouse, and whether you guys should, take your time to watch it. So let's jump in. Ex-UFC fighter Dalton takes a job as a bouncer at a Florida Keys roadhouse, only to discover that this paradise is not all it seems. So in 1989, we had the Roadhouse movie with Patrick Swayze.
Guess not.
And he had all sorts of sex appeal, presence on screen, cheesy dialogue, cheesy sound effects with the and yet that kind of worked still. The violence, the story, the characters, you sort of love, even though that you're watching is a ridiculous movie. It was a very easy, tried and tested formula that worked because of some things that had. Now back then, the critics weren't very big fans of it, but the audience did love it. And we seem to be teetering on the same sort of thing with this one. Jake Gyllenhaal this time is our Dalton character, and he is playing an ex-UFC fighter that takes up a job because he kind of needs the money. And that's when we get the similarities starting to come with our Roadhouse story. It's the bouncer tries to sort out the bar, meets a couple of people that he likes, and has to protect it and has to find a willingness, a wanting to stay in this place longer and sort it out. There has to be some emotionality there. And that's where we get to my issues with this film. There is not any real emotion here tied to any characters. They kind of tease us with the characters that we are getting to relationship with the Dalton, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, and every time we start getting close to him, they cut away. It's like a few seconds at a time. There's no real meat for our character, so that when you find themselves in peril or in Dalton, you're like, okay, well, I know he's the good guy, but I'm not sure whether I want him to win. If you scoot back to the 1980s film, we had good characters that kind of lent us into liking the characters. For example, Dalton knew one of the band members, and the blind character who I loved. I thought he was fantastic.
You'd be bigger.
You can't talk about Roadhouse without talking about the music. For me, this time round, Roadhouse knocked it out of the park again with the bands that they had on there. Fantastic music, really adds that presence to some of the music that you would find in a bar, a dive bar as some people would call it. And here I thought they did the same mechanics and work quite well as the original. Problem is, there was no one for Dalton to like, and that's where I think the biggest flaw for the newest film is. Dalton doesn't have anybody to feed off of. Jake doesn't have anybody to feed off of. There isn't any of that montage training.
He's not what you'd expect.
There isn't any of that way he trains the bar members to do something.
Ask him to walk, but be nice.
Help this gentleman to the door.
There's our moments, but again, it feels like they're running out of time. They spend their time elsewhere, so we don't get those kind of montage where he's coming together with the group, teaching the guys how to fight or protect the bar. There isn't that Wade Garrett character.
He's the best friend.
That is Sam Elliott, that really kind of plays off each other. They both have the suaveness. One's from an older walk of life, and they're kind of that friends but work together.
You guys tired?
I'll go get all the sleep I need when I'm dead.
To throw the riffraff out. That's what I loved about the first film. I thought it had heart where it needed to have heart. This time round, you do have great action. And I think the training for what Jake Gyllenhaal did definitely pay off. He looks an amazing peak physical performance. You believe him when he's fighting. And you can see the turmoil, like his past is dark, and we get a little bit of backstory for him. But it wasn't enough for me to go, yeah, this film deserved to be remade. We still have that original that works quite well, even though it's still cheesy. Here, they've taken that cheese out and gone for being quite serious, not really enough tongue-in-cheek or enough character emotion for us to care about the film. It's a great one-time watch, and it does have one of those most brutal scenes. You know, the first Roadhouse is known for the throat pull. There isn't that in this film, but there is a moment that I think you'll enjoy for that violence. And when we're talking about the violence, there's one crazy character here that you do wonder whether even our Dalton character will be able to defeat because of the sheer skill, the mental brokenness of this character, and just the persona of him wanting to kill everything that he touches, fight because he can, sort of character like Kano in Mortal Kombat. Think that and you're in the right wheelhouse.
Oh, hello, sunshine.
There isn't anybody else that I can talk about in this film that had great presence on screen in the new Roadhouse. There isn't anybody that kind of stands out and goes, yeah, that was great. There are other characters, whether I can remember their names at the moment, I can't, because they're already very forgetful. Jake was great in this role. I do feel like there wasn't enough substance to this action movie, but as a one-time watch, I would say it's teetering on a 3 Nicolas Cages out of 5.
You got one.
To 2.75 Nicolas Cages out of 5.
You got one.
I couldn't give it more than that. I'd probably still rate Roadhouse as a 3.5, even though I know it's not a great film. It still has more fun for me. Not just nostalgia, carries on most of the weight, even though it is an old film now. So let me know what you think about these two films. Are you a fan of the original? Had you even heard of the original? Is this your first time watching it? If it is your first time and you don't have that film to fall back on, then I think you'll probably enjoy it as a one-time watch, probably more than others that have great fun memories of one of the fun action 80s movies that you stick on now and again for nostalgia, and then remember, actually I quite enjoyed this film, even though it is nostalgic, even though it is cheesy. I'm hoping that people will find fun in this one. Jake looks amazing, and his physicality in this with the fighting sequences are great. There are a couple of specialized camera sequences that I don't think they needed to be so creative with. There's a first and third person mode that they cut in and out of, and I don't feel it works well, because when they are changing that angle and it's first, you feel like you're in a video game, and then sometimes the punches that they throw just don't look real. It does look like a video game, so that kind of takes you out of it. So I was a little bit disappointed with this. I was really excited to watch this version. I thought of all the films that they could remake, this could be long enough for them to do something fresh and new with, but I just don't think they've gone their own way enough to make this a valid attempt to remake what was great back then and is still great now. So let me know your thoughts and feelings about this film or the original. Thanks so much for watching, but first of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.